Why does every generation feel like it's speaking a different language?
We argue about work, faith, and values, but underneath, we're asking the same questions.
From the silent generation to Gen Alpha, we explore what shaped each generation
and what they're still searching for.
It's not about who got it right.
It's about understanding and finding the thread that binds us.
This is the common thread.
Welcome to The Common Thread, where we explore experiences and values that shape our lives through different generations. Education is one of the few experiences nearly every generation shares, but the classrooms, expectations, and fears inside those walls have changed dramatically. Today, we're exploring how school shaped Boomers, Gen X, and Gen Z, and whether it truly prepared any of us for life beyond the bell. Today, we have some special guests in the house, and I want each of them to introduce themselves. Dewana, would you like to start?
Yes, my name is Dewana Shantz. I'm a baby boomer, and I am from that generation long ago.
And I am Vonda Zing. I'm from Gen X. I'm a mother to two of the guests today.
Hi, my name is Madison Zing. I am part of the Gen Z group, and I am here with my family members.
I'm Adea Zing, and I'm also part of Gen Z, and I am Maddie's sister.
Thank you very much. Can each of you share what type of education experience that you had, whether it be as a student, as a teacher, public, private, family school, homeschool, that sort of thing?
My experience was I first attended public school in Olathe, Kansas. My first through fourth grades were in a public school. Fifth through eighth grade, I was in a country school, one-room classroom where there was fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth. My dad was the teacher. I had 5 students in my fifth grade class, and so it was quite an interesting experience. And then later on in life, I became a teacher through the influence of my dad, who was a teacher and a principal, 40 some years, I guess it was. And so I have taught preschool, kindergarten, and first through third grades.
And what about you?
I was a public school student in my early years until, it was 5th, 6th, and part of 7th grade was Christian school that I attended. And I was also a homeschool teacher to my daughters, Madison and Adea.
Okay, Madison, would you like to share?
Well, the first school I went to was family school. So for one half of the week, we're in public school and we do homework in the public school. And then the next half of the week, it's like the homeschool portion of the week and we do our homework at home. I went there first to 5th grade year. And then after that, we did online school, but then it didn't really work out. We kind of struggled a little bit through it because getting help and communication through it wasn't the greatest when you have 100 kids trying to ask one teacher a question throughout the day. So it was pretty difficult, and that's why we switched to homeschool. And then through my 8th through 12th grade year, I did the private school CCA, which is Catholic Christian Academy.
And Adea, were there any differences in your experience than your sister?
Not really. Did it 2 years behind. So for family school, I just went from 1st to 3rd grade. I was homeschooled for 4th and 5th grade. And then the rest, I went to CCA. So that's pretty much the only difference.
Okay, thank you for sharing. Adea, when you hear the word school, what's the first feeling that comes up for you?
Dread.
Dread?
Yeah. Because I feel like school is not really viewed as like a good thing because it's hard sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
We don't usually wake up in the morning and actually like want to go to school. It just feels like school just looms over you, you know?
Did you graduate at a certain rank in your high school?
Yeah, I was valedictorian.
Valedictorian. So you had a lot of pressure on you. Would you say that?
Yeah.
Do you think you put that pressure on yourself or you felt pressure from other people?
Well, a little bit of both, to be honest.
For me, I think it's joy because, okay, sure, I did struggle, especially in math, and I fought the ends of the world for it. But for me, when I went to CCA, there were other things that we did just besides homework, like secondary retreat. We stayed the night at our church/school, but what happens is we plan meals and everything. There's spam and stuff like that, and it's all of secondary, 7 through 12. We all get called into groups. People randomly choose leaders, and same with the people on the team. And we have to work as a team through challenges throughout the day, through our memorization, strength, teamwork, brain, and stuff like that. And I always thought it was interesting, actually. Those moments provided me joy because I don't know, it was some fun times trying to figure that stuff out with especially people that you don't really know in a group. So even though homework was sure it was kind of dreadful sometimes, there was also some events that happened that were pretty cool. And also some of the lessons were cool too.
Thanks, Maddie. That's great. I'm glad it was a good experience for you.
It was.
Tawana, when you hear the word school, what's the first feeling that comes up for you?
Well, I suppose there were some times that I dreaded going to school, but since I grew up in a home where one of my parents was a teacher, a lifelong teacher, it was something that was required. So I just kind of settled in to knowing that I had to go to school. And so school meant teacher, student, classmates, learning, recess, but also homework and tests and things like that. And it was not a choice, it was required. And then beyond elementary school and high school, I also went to college, which prepared me to be a teacher. And I also attended a Bible college, and I appreciated that because I just learned a lot from both the public and the Bible school.
Vonda, what are your thoughts?
I thought school was a little stressful, and so I kind of dreaded it because after a long day of school, then we had to come home and do the homework. And sometimes I would get stressed out, and my mother would have me take a break and go on a walk or something to clear my mind so I could keep working.
Oh, okay. This question is for anyone who'd like to answer. Do you believe school prepared you for life or mostly for the next test?
I believe it prepared me for, ultimately, it did prepare me for life. That's just what I think. Yes, it did prepare me for life.
I would say both because I feel like it mainly does prepare you for life, but then there are some things where it does feel like it prepares you only for the next test. I feel like it prepares you for specific kinds of things. Like for English, if you wanted to be like a poet, or if you want to be an engineer in math, like that complicated math.
Mm-hmm.
Because if not, then the complicated math is more for the next test. So that's what I would say.
I think the basic classes prepare you for life. I mean, you have to know how to read and write and, just know some basic facts about history and science. But I would have to agree with Madison on some of those higher math classes. Not everyone can get through them, or chemistry.
Yeah, I agree with both my mom and my sister because it does teach you some valuable things, but it doesn't teach everything. Because if you don't take money management class, or if they don't have that option, you don't really know how to deal with your finances, and they don't really teach you how to do interviews really, unless it's something special where you can, learn how to do that. But it just depends on where you go and what's available. for you to learn at the school you go to.
It's a good point, Adea. So before we talk about outcomes, let's start with the environment itself. So how were lessons delivered to you?
Well, it was mostly, for me, it was mostly lecture and memorization. There was some discussions, but it was still mostly like lecture and then memorizing things.
In the public school, I would definitely say a lot of lecture and taking notes and memorization. There was a little bit of discussion, but there wasn't a lot of time for that. We had a big, I don't know, like 30, 35 kids in a class. So it was hard to have a discussion.
Well, I remember mostly reading and discussing the text. Well, of course, the teacher would be at the head of the class, and we would be reading and discussing the text together. And then going over the review questions, which were at the end of the chapter, which would prepare us for the test.
Well, for online school, it was mainly lecture because the teacher was online and it was a little hard to discuss stuff when there was like a bunch of us in the class. But like with the private school, it was a little bit easier since there wasn't as many of us, like not hundreds of kids, there was less than that. And we would do discussion, memorization. When some lessons require it, collaboration.
And which method did you guys learn best from?
Discussion and memorization for me. It helped me, especially to discuss stuff with other people sometimes so that I could get different points of view. Because, yeah, everyone can be looking at a lesson differently. And especially like in English class, we could read a story and people can look at it from different points of view.
Thank you. Now, what traits were most rewarded? Obedience, curiosity, or creativity?
It was mostly obedience because I feel like the teachers really just wanted you to do whatever they told you to do with the homework and other things.
Mm-hmm.
Like they didn't
I
really
would
want
agree.
you to.
I would agree with Adea. Mostly obedience was rewarded during my school years.
I just wanted to speak about the homeschool situation. Like when I was teaching the girls, that was a completely different situation where we got to explore things we were curious about more, and we could be more creative with how we were learning too. We could go on a lot more field trips, which I think was a really good way to learn. I mean, I enjoyed them. I don't know about the girls, but yeah.
Do you feel the same way? Do you feel it was creative?
Yeah, I would definitely feel like we definitely got to learn curiosity, especially when we were homeschooled, not online schooled, homeschooled.
Mm-hmm.
And then with the private school, I actually feel like there was obedience, but there was also a bit of creativity, like for the English projects. I read Edgar Allan Poe book, and one of them was called The Mask of the Red Death. And so we had to choose what project we wanted to do. So I chose to get an actual mask, and the mask was painted from the different color rooms that were in the story. And it was the same with family school, too. I think the 5th grade I was in, there was a project I had that was like, choose a country, and that will be the country you write about. And so I picked a country called Marshall Islands. And there wasn't much information about it. So that was fun to figure out everything about this country I barely knew. And I got this little unique fan that I got from
Cool.
this lady in the Marshall Islands, which that was amazing and fun. Yeah, that experience was great. Creativity and my curiosity exploded there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, how did historical events impact your learning experience? Things like COVID, 9/11, or we have such a big gap here of generations. I'm really interested in the answer to this one.
Okay, well, I was in college when John F. Kennedy was assassinated. And I was in a Bible college up in Minnesota. And after that was announced, the country was really shocked and in mourning. It was really a big thing. And because we were in I was in a Bible college, we had a chapel service totally dedicated to praying for the country and for the family of the Kennedys and just for our nation. It was quite impactful. And then I was also in school when the Vietnam War was going on. It was in the news a lot, and we had a friend who was over there fighting, and he was one that got to come home. And so we were happy about that. And also, I was teaching when the 9/11 happened. And that was quite an interesting time, too, because a lot of parents came and picked up their children from school. We just didn't know what was happening. The skies were quiet that day, and for a few days after, no airplanes were flying. It was really quite disturbing for everyone.
I remember in 8th grade, the Space Shuttle Challenger went up in the air and broke apart. I think I read it was 73 seconds after it went up, and it killed all the crew members. And that was scary. It was like we were watching it happen, and then the teachers like turned off the television real quick because they didn't know how to handle it either.
Yeah, and it was a special trip too, wasn't it? And a special mission. They had a teacher on board, a civilian.
That's right. So it was supposed to be really historic, and it was very scary.
That's right. Madison?
Okay, so COVID happened suddenly. I remember that it was during spring break. I think this happened in the 10th grade year for me. It was just an uncontrollable virus. And we had to wear masks, we had to stay 6 feet apart. And when you had to get like the COVID flu shots, later they said it was actually more mandatory. But yes, we had break and then it extended until we did online school through CCA. So that was an experience. Everyone was scared over this virus and that they were scared. They were scared.
Adea, can you kind of expound on the other side of this? I love how Maddie was sharing about what she remembered about that period. But for you, can you tell me a little bit about how it affected your studies? Was it harder to do it online? Did the fear or did the anxiety affect your schoolwork in any way?
Well, it was kind of odd because it was online, and I feel like it was a bit harder to talk to your teachers about stuff. And also, you couldn't see your classmates, and you couldn't talk to them either. It's like you were isolated. So it was definitely different. It felt weird. Like, you were taking the same classes with the same people, but it was harder to communicate with everyone. I feel like we were all kind of learning how online school was with the teachers and whatnot. So, yeah.
I have something to add about like how it affected people like once we went to school again. Everyone was kind of like distant and it's like COVID actually did that to you. People became more distant because COVID made you be forced to stay indoors and you didn't really get to connect to people on the outside world that much.
We're going to go into that right now about what did drills and like security measures come into your school experience. So you mentioned COVID, so there was some kind of security measures there, but what about other things like school shootings and those kind of threats that have arisen lately? Vonda?
Well, I remember in high school that there were a lot of gangs in our high school. And during passing period, one time, one of the boys went running down the hall with a chain, swinging it around at everybody. And we were scared and we backed up against the lockers in the hallway to get out of the way. It was scary. And another time we were coming back from lunch and had gotten out of the car, and all of a sudden everybody started running and someone had like a gun or a bat or something, but all we knew was if they're running, we're running. So it was scary because we didn't know what was going on.
Did you have any security measures that were taken? Were students searched, anything like that?
I don't know what happened, but we did have at least one, maybe even two police officers at the school. I don't know why, but we called them narcs.
Was there anything in your generation like that? Was there that kind of...
As a student, I did not experience those kind of things at all. I am thankful for that. But as a teacher in the late 90s, early 2000s, we were instructed in our teacher meetings at school for lockdowns in case, say, there was a police activity in the area and they were looking for someone, then we would have to lock down the classroom, be responsible, to keep the students quiet and just locked in. And that was concerning. But I'm so thankful and I feel so sorry for teachers who are in situations where there are school shooters. That's just a very sad situation. Thankfully, I didn't experience that, but I do feel sorry for teachers today that have to deal with that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. School just didn't teach subjects, it taught expectations about the future. So let's talk about what education was quietly preparing each of you guys for. What did school suggest success would look like for you? What was that picture that it painted?
Well, us is kind of, you could be whatever you want to be, but part of it was also like, if you go to college or trade school or something and get like a lot of money from whatever job you got from, higher education, then, you would be successful. Like, it's mostly like, if you have a lot of money, you would be successful, and college and trade schools help you get a ton of money,
Okay. So money.
Yeah, in a way, money. But also, like with the Christian school, they also taught us that if you stayed with God, God would lead you down the path of success. Like, God looks at success differently for you. And that His plan for you will lead to your own personal success.
Thank you for sharing that. Anybody else?
I guess I would say that school suggested a career in teaching would be, well, it was encouraged by my dad, who was a teacher. And he felt that having 4 daughters, that would be a good career for us to pursue. 3 of us turned out to be teachers, and one went into the medical area and was a nurse. So I'm just happy for the way that I was led, into teaching.
So, which lessons did you have to learn outside the classroom?
Budgeting.
Learning how to answer interview questions.
How to resolve conflict, which is still very hard to do.
Oh, yeah, that's very important for the workplace, right?
Yes. And just interpersonal relationships as well.
Right.
I would agree. Managing money as a single person before marriage was something I had to learn to do because I had to pay rent. In early college days, I lived with 2 other girls, and we shared rent and we shared utilities and things like that. So that was a learning experience. But then when I became a widow at the age of 50, that was interesting too. I had to learn to do everything that my former husband used to do. And so, yes, life throws these things at you sometimes, and you learn from them.
You do. And you don't always learn them in school.
No.
So, of course, education just isn't about systems. It's deeply personal. And often the people who make the biggest impact weren't the subjects, but the teachers themselves. So, how were your teachers viewed in your generation?
As a student, I would say teachers were authority figures. As a homeschool teacher with a family school, we were considered co-teachers with the public school teachers, so they worked with us quite a bit, which I really enjoyed that because I felt as if I was an equal to them, which was to me very respectful because we both wanted the best for our children.
So, was questioning the material or the teacher's interpretation of the material encouraged or discouraged?
I would say mostly encouraged.
Mostly encouraged. Do you think teachers today are being asked to fill roles far beyond instruction?
Yes, I do. Due to the home life of many students these days, there are divorces, children watching parents argue, fight, alcoholism in the home, separation, and that sort of a thing. I remember I was teaching second grade this particular year, and a child came to school one morning and she was very scared. She said, "My dad pointed a gun at my mama this morning." And so I had to deal with that. I was required to report that. And so then I went to the office, and the CYFD stepped in and took her out of school, and as well as her twin brothers that were in a junior high. And yes, that was a sad situation.
And also, there are some single parents. So, there's some situations in which parents both have a job, so they don't have the time. And there's also gay and lesbian marriages. In gay marriages, there's no one to really fill the mother role. And in lesbian marriages, there's no one really to fill the father role.
I'm interested in you guys sharing a story about a teacher who changed how you saw yourself.
I was gonna answer the one before, actually. The
Go
question you asked about the teachers, if the teachers today are being asked to fill roles beyond instruction. I mainly agree that yes, they are, but then I also would say no. I feel like, especially in the public schools, or maybe in the online school, they're mainly there to teach instruction and not like help a student beyond homework. I don't think
ahead.
there's really any time, especially when you're an online person. And in public schools, they're teaching multiple students. I could see like maybe, but I could also see like no.
I feel like teachers now have to spend a lot of time on social issues and political correctness and redefining pronouns. So it gets confusing and it seems like the rules are always changing. Now you got to do this, now you got to do this, and you just have to be politically correct. And it's not just about teaching math and English and science. And so I think it gets harder and harder for teachers.
Okay, thank you. I love that we've got some disagreement here. And you share a story about a teacher who changed how you saw yourself.
My teacher would be my mother, also a teacher. And she just helped me at home with my homework and just helped me feel good about myself with just how I was doing with school. So that helped. I don't know if I have anyone within the public school that changed my life, except for I remember my fifth grade teacher made things kind of fun because if you got a good grade, she would draw a cartoon all over the entire paper. So that was fun. Mrs. Thompson. Yeah, that was fun.
Anybody else have a teacher that impacted them? Maddie?
I would say in 8th grade, my choir teacher, Mrs. Moron, she changed how I saw myself because in school, I was not the most outgoing person in the entire world. I was definitely not. And I had choir with her, and she thought I had a great voice and everything. And so she pushed me to do a few solo parts. And she made me just really confident in my voice and everything and singing out to a crowd and facing that fear of stage fright. And also she pushed me to join the worship team from 9th grade to 10th grade as well. And there's that. And also I do have another teacher. It was Mrs. Self. So I was a student aide to the kindergartners. It was interesting trying to be a student aide to little kids, but it also prepared me for when I eventually have my own kids. And it changed my view of, oh, I don't know how to deal with kids to, oh, so this is what's going on in their curious little minds, and they're very arguable, and they get into trouble a lot. And I remember she even made me read a story to them. And also she made me wake up the kids, which I'm like, oh, do I really want to wake up the kids? Sometimes I have a hard time waking up the kids when they're so stubborn and they're so tired. But then I realize that's one of the rules you're gonna have to do later in life when you're a mom. So, but yeah, she pushed me. I'm glad for that experience. Actually, she was a teacher that did inspire me.
Thanks, Maddie. Adea, did you have a teacher? Did you have a special teacher?
Kind of. He was like my Bible teacher, and he would give a bit more context. He would explain the culture of that time, so we would understand it better. And one of the things that he said about Israel was that boys would get married around 13 or 14 years old, and girls would get married at like 15 or 16. And I was like, oh, that's like really young. I'm glad I don't really have to deal with that. I'm not sure if this is right, but they may or may not have had arranged marriages. But if they did, I'm glad that we don't have to deal with that anymore. Especially, like, we don't have to get married at such a young age.
Thank you. Even with the best teachers, some of life's most important lessons never appeared on a syllabus. Let's talk about what happened after the bell rang. What ultimately taught you more, school or life?
I would say life. There's so many different situations that you have to learn, and you make mistakes and you learn from those mistakes. Some things are just, there aren't easy answers. There's not multiple choice in life.
I feel like life, because school taught you how to do your job, but life teaches you all the special different scenarios that happen. Because things don't always go according to plan. Things break and shut down and whatnot, and people complain, and all things happen.
Yes. Well, each had their place, and structured learning was necessary, of course, but life skills were learned outside the classroom and also necessary to learn as well. And you just learn them sometimes by experience, and sometimes you learn from other people too, how to handle certain things that come up in life. And so, yes, we learn both ways.
You would say both? Okay. You would say both. Vonda?
My memory is jogged, and I remember that in middle school and in high school, I had a home ec class. So in middle school, I got to learn how to sew. And also in middle school and in high school, I got to learn how to cook. So that was fun. And I don't think that gets taught anymore. I don't know, but I don't hear anyone talking about it from public schools.
Maddie, school or life?
I kind of want to agree with Nana, to be honest. I feel like it's kind of both in a way. In a way, well, depending on the school you go to, it can teach you about taxes, how do you use your money, and just like the basic stuff that prepare you for life. Everyone's experience is different. job wise, money wise, relationship wise. I feel like with life, it mainly prepares you more because there are more experiences outside of school that you experience over school. So
Okay.
I kind of say both, I guess.
Well, how did your generation view failure? Something to hide or something to learn from?
This is kind of it's an interesting question. It's kind of difficult to answer too.
Yeah.
I would say that most people who experience failure in one way or another probably want to hide it. And I can't really remember or say what my generation did with that. I think that's a personal thing, or an individual thing. How you would handle failure. It would depend upon a person's parents, their whole situation, I believe. So I can't really give a definite answer on that.
Is there anyone here that feels that they have a handle on how their generation viewed failure or how it affected you and your view on failure?
I feel like with school, in regarding school, if you got an F, it wasn't something to learn from and grow from there. It felt more like something to be ashamed of, and that you were worthless. So in that sense, if we're talking about education here, then it would be something to be ashamed of. But in dealing with difficulty with school with my daughters, the teachers explained that grades were just a guideline to know how to teach better and how to reach the students better. But I never really knew that, or knew that that's how they were thinking. Because for me, it felt like I was a failure if I got an F or a D or something like that.
So did that change your perspective from your experience to teaching them? Did that change you as a person?
It changed my experience as a parent, because I wish I would have known that as a student, and I wish I'd have known a long time before that, so that I could look at it that way as a homeschool teacher, or just a different perspective on grades and those kinds of things.
Yeah.
So
So it's less about performance and more about allowing learning to be in a space that's flexible for the student. Correct?
right. And that learning, like when I was a homeschool teacher, that learning should be more geared towards what the student is interested in and what their strengths are, and just kind of guide them so that they can learn, but they don't have to be perfect. They just have to learn and take time to learn.
Right. Awesome. Thank you guys. So if the four of you were designing a school together, what would be non-negotiable for you?
God, the Bible, like teaching the Bible, praying in class.
She beat you to it, guys. Okay.
Okay, so in a phrase, I would say a biblical worldview. So I'm agreeing with the Dea, you know, but you would, yeah. There's many worldviews. I think there's about 7 or 8 different worldviews, and one of them is a biblical worldview, which I would think would be unnegotiable.
Maddie?
Respect. That's one thing I feel like through the generations, it kind of gotten worse, I'm gonna be honest. The way like students handle their teachers nowadays. For example, I was in a McDonald's and there was these students that were there disrespecting the managers there. I also heard that teachers have it a rough time in class because they only listen to the teacher if there's like some sort of reward, and it's not because of respect or discipline. So respect is definitely one of the things that would be non-negotiable in the school, because it's definitely lost through the generations that I've seen. It's getting worse and worse.
I would like to see more parent involvement. I'm not quite sure how that would work in a public school unless there was some sort of background check or something because you don't know everybody's situation. Mom, I thought you had a good idea, maybe, I don't know, some sort of a contract between the parent and the teacher or the school or something about
I think teachers, parents, and district, anyone connected with starting this school should get together and develop a contract that would be between students and teachers, parents and teachers or parents and the school, just stating their willingness to cooperate with the rules and keep their children under the rules. It just seems like we've lost just connection, and I think that would connect us more.
Last question for you guys. What lesson do you believe every generation still needs to learn? Madison, you might have answered that one, but if you got something else, let me know. Fonda.
Kindness. Let's be kind to each other. A lot of parents, I know in public school especially, they just can be disrespectful to the teachers, or students to other students can be unkind and cruel. And I think that's one of the things that goes along with respect, is just learning to be kind to each other and that all of us matter.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I agree with that. Anybody else?
Well, respect for elders and obedience to parents and to teachers, and, well, a love for our country, a love for America, and a love for Jesus, and just doing what is right. Because it seems like I see so much disrespect and people wanting to do their own thing, which is pretty drastic sometimes.
I feel like there's a lot of kids who just do inappropriate things, like say inappropriate things to other people and then do other inappropriate things. Like if you make out in the hallways of a school or whatever, keep that to yourselves, okay? Like, just control yourselves, please. People need more self-control.
Good one. Maddie?
I mean, I don't know if this ties into what Adea said. It's not entirely self-control. It's like self-discipline, I think. I mean, I guess it does kind of tie into what Adea says, but definitely self-discipline and like how people handle themselves and everything. And yes, I agree with you, Nana. Kids should respect their elders, the teachers, people, even just kids around them, because sometimes even when they're just talking to their classmates, they could be pretty foul-mouthed.
Also, I feel like there's a lot of kids that dress immodestly, and it can distract people from learning, because if you're showing too much, then people will look, and it just does not help people learn.
Mm-hmm. You're right, Adea. You have been so privileged to have that taught to you, in your Christian school and at home. Modesty is important for women, especially. Yes, it does demand respect.
Yep.
All right. Thank you guys so much for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate your time and everything. Great job. And we're going to sign off now. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
On the next episode of The Common Thread.
People looked at churches like, we need changes in the churches. Because I think at that time, when we worshiped, we were worshiping out of the hymnal. Mm-hmm. We were worshiping in a traditional way, as we had for hundreds of years, singing the wonderful hymns. And this is not to downplay the hymns, it's just that everybody kind of wanted a new face to see. And so wasn't it about that time that we began to see contemporary music began to come out? And so we began to see that in the churches. I think for me, at least, that's part of what I saw as what needed to be reformed.
This has been The Common Thread, a podcast produced by Hidden Treasure Productions. New episodes will be out every other week, wherever you listen to your podcasts, including our website, hiddentreasureproductions.org. Thank you for listening. We hope you join us for the next episode.